Hey guys, welcome back to Economics and Comics. So, this is the non-spoiler review of the new movie Hellboy. Pretty excited to bring it to you. I'm here with Joel and Mike Massey from GoneWithTheTwins.com.
Thanks so much for having us back.
If you would like to read a written review, please check out their site. It's great. They have reviews on everything. So let's just go ahead and get right into it, guys. Is this a Guillermo del Toro film?
It is not. It's a Neil Marshall film, and
Yes.
it feels
Who?
like that. Neil Marshall.
Yeah. Well, sadly for anybody hoping that this was going to be kind of rounds out and becomes a third film, it is not. This is their attempt to kind of reboot the franchise, start over, and so we're left with a very strange re-origin sort of a film.
Yeah, they do a little bit of recap almost.
Well,
It's based on The Wild Hunt, I believe.
Yeah, which is
comic.
the comic book series.
Yeah. One of the strangest things that I thought that they did is, in the first few scenes where they're trying to establish the story, they get right into Hellboy already being Hellboy, and the BPRD is kind of something that everybody's familiar with, and it's almost matter of fact that humans exist in a world where paranormal things take place. So I thought, okay, this is interesting. Maybe there won't be a Hellboy origins thing. Maybe
I
we're
thought
just
it was a third.
yeah,
because of
maybe
that.
we're just thrust right into the story.
I
But
thought it was part 3.
15 minutes in, they revert back and they do an origins,
Yes.
and it's a flashback and everything. And it's very strange because it at a certain point, after 15 minutes of audiences just absorbing all the information of Hellboy existing in the world, it's strange to then say, okay, now let us fill you in on how Hellboy became Hellboy. It's a very, very bizarre choice.
It almost tricks you into thinking that it's part 3,
Yeah.
and you just think he's out and about in the town because people know who he is and stuff like that. And but you instantly, I'm sorry, it's just I'm a Hellboy fan, comic and movie, and this was I think they made a big mistake.
Yeah, well, one of the things with Guillermo del Toro's films and his work as a director, he's so
he's very
visionary.
visual,
He everything is so visually based, and even if you didn't like the first 2 Hellboy films, like if the storylines just weren't your thing, the visual still had something in it for everybody. So I think where they fall apart here is that there are some interesting visuals. They have some interesting characters, but
Well, Neil Marshall is also a visual storyteller, and here.
Can you give me an example of one of his other movies that I?
that's the problem.
Yeah, well, okay, so The Descent was one of his earlier movies that did
Okay.
very well. And then he did Doomsday, which did very poorly.
Yeah.
And I think this one...
This is Doomsday.
Yeah, you can tell from a storytelling aspect, the movie jumps all over the place to a million different ideas. It jumps from scene to scene every 5 seconds.
Oh.
So it definitely has pacing problems, and from a storytelling aspect, it has problems that way. What it does do well are some of the visuals. The kind of gothic scenery, the practical effects when they do them are very well done, and they look great. But,
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Doomsday,
Yeah.
because there's a film that fell apart because it had too many incongruous ideas, and they're trying to put too much in there.
During this film, a lot of the twists and turns it takes, you kind of think, wow, did you really have to cram all of that into here? It's like a million ideas in one.
One of the things with Doomsday is that they kind of mixed old mythological concepts with modern futuristic technology. This one, you kind of get a similar sense. They've got King Arthur, and that whole thing is kind of built into the mythology of Hellboy, and it's very jarring, and it doesn't fit.
Well,
with
the opening
modern stuff.
sequence is kind of explains that there's a Knights of the Round Table. King Arthur is hunting down witches and things like that. So yeah, it
Well,
definitely.
you don't want to give too much away.
No, that's the first minute of the movie, though. So-
But unfortunately, if you're looking for Guillermo del Toro, it is not to be seen. It's very frustrating for me because I personally love both the movies, 1 and 2. I love the visual part of it, and there's definitely a lot of CG, and even the new Hellboy actor,
David Harbour.
David Harbour, like they've got the look down. He's a little bit darker color, and it's almost like you feel like it's Ron Perlman, but man, I hate to say it, this guy, no emotion in his acting. Every time they try to hit something funny, it wasn't funny. It's just, I was hoping for something, and I couldn't find it.
There are funny lines. Some of the dialogue is funny. I think
not-
just the delivery is a little off,
The delivery.
and the pacing of the lines when they'll do a really kind of violent graphic scene, and it almost maybe they just wait too long to do the comedy, or they put the comedy in there too soon, and it doesn't blend well.
Well, Bill, it's interesting you mentioned David Harbour, the way he looks in this film. They did make him a little bit. So Ron Perlman's the way he was built, he was kind of smooth and rubbery in a way. And this
I felt he looked like the crisp, clean Hellboy. Yeah, and this one is like the grungy, homeless Hellboy or something.
Yeah, because he's a bit hairy and he's kind of disheveled.
Yeah. He walks around with a no shirt on, and he's got the stringy hair. And
but the difference is that Ron Perlman's character had a bit of charisma. He had a distinct personality, and you could kind of buy into that. This one, David Harbour's character, he's just a stick in the mud. He just delivers his lines, and there's no enthusiasm. You can't get behind this character. You can't root for it.
Even when he's delivering lines of comedy, it's very serious. I feel like it's first of all, his performance is a bit flat. It's all one note, but at least with Ron Perlman, I feel like he approached almost everything with like a tinge of humor that really kept the character, alive.
It wasn't there. I mean, this movie was missing everything. It was. I hate to say it because I really wanted the best out of it. Maybe that was my problem walking in there, but it missed everything, and it kept jumping from different scene to different scene, different circumstance. They could have thrown a half of it, worked a little bit more. We were talking about this earlier. Worked a little bit more on the characters and dialogue, and made it run better. But it's just all over the place. The acting.
They do jump from location to location, and to certain locations where you kind of realize later, well, they didn't even need any of that.
It feels a bit like a James Bond film, right? Where they're trying to globetrot to get to certain scenic areas. And, they create a predicament just so that the characters can move to a new location. Mm-hmm. And then once they're at that location, here's another mission. So it's almost like there's side missions and side quests that they have to do to ultimately get and defeat the...
But most of them end up kind of being like red herrings, and they don't actually
there's
the story.
What is it? The Osiris Club is this club with...
It's kind of a counterpart to the BRPD.
Yeah, but it's the British version. And there's like a 35 minute sequence dealing with this, and it has no bearing on the rest of the story. Has no bearing on Mila Jovovich's main villain character. It's fluff. It's padding, and it makes this movie 2 hours long.
It's possible that those are aspects that came from the comic book.
Yes, but it's obvious to me that I hate to say it, but. They didn't want Guillermo del Toro. They didn't want Ron Perlman. They didn't want to finish the trilogy. They wanted to start over and with new characters and introduce the characters we know later in more movies. And to me, it was all about more money. It's not about finishing something. It's about starting over and trying to maybe compete with Marvel and DC.
For sure.
Starting it all over again. And they started over, but they failed to match Guillermo del Toro's.
Weirdly, it's too soon to start over, right? Del Toro's films are not that old, so I think a lot of people will be familiar with them. And so then there's repetition in this film when they have to retread over the origins element of it. And then, we're already familiar with a lot of the characters' behaviors and what they're capable of. So this film, trying to redo some of that, it just makes it's very repetitive. And
also, there's a lot of really creative creature concepts and designs, and the locations and everything. But also for every really interesting creature, there's also one that's not very interesting, and it seems so beneath the rest of the visuals.
Honestly, guys, to wrap it up, I just want to say this on my own end. If you're new to Hellboy, you could start here, and you'll get the origin and all that. But it's lacking. It's just hard for me to understand that 10 years ago they could make such a better film quality-wise, Guillermo del Toro and them, that this doesn't even come close to it, and it's very frustrating. But if you're new to it, you can start here and follow the series on if it does well. I don't know. I didn't hate it, but I just...
Well, this film's success will dictate whether or not they keep going, and I suspect that they might have to just stop here.
I think it'll do well, just because everyone's going to want to go see it. And they're probably hoping for a part 3, and they're all going to be let down. But there are some cool... The very ending was pretty cool. There's some cool parts, but...
Well, and as Joel mentioned, the scenes where there's cool costumes and practical effects and, severed heads and things like that, when they look real because they're actually built models and things, they look good. But the CG starts to take over in a lot of scenes, and that's where it's very noticeably... it's just...
For me, I believe a lot of the problems are probably from Neil Marshall. They have the ingredients. They have the interesting characters, based on Mike Mignola's stuff. They have the creature designs. They have violence and blood and gore and all this stuff. And it's like the chef just didn't know how to put it all together to make something interesting.
So Bill, score?
Well, if you want to, check more detailed written review, go check them out at GoneWithTheTwins.com. Please sub if you like this. I'm going to give a rating. I'm just 4 out of 10. Sorry. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for taking me, guys. Yep. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.